Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Scale with Joy Summit. I am here with my friend, Dori Roberts, and you may not know Dori, but you may know her company, Engineering for Kids. If you have a kid and Engineering for Kids is local to you, you've probably heard of it. Your kids might be in the program, and what you might not know is this awesome chick who started it all. So thank you, Dori. I asked her to be here with you today because she has done so much to advocate for creativity, women in the in engineering and sciences, and she also did this as a single mom. So it's so cool. So you single moms out there, or the women that love single moms, she is going to be a total inspiration. So thank you, Dori, for coming.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate you having me. Love what you're doing, and this is exciting to be a part of this.
Cool, awesome. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with our audience here a little bit about how you got started, and then what your company is like today.
Sure. So I'm a former high school engineering teacher, and through that process, I also was the school's advisor for the Technology Student Association, and that's an after-school club in which kids can participate and compete nationally against other schools in areas of engineering, science, technology, things like that. While I was doing that, I had my own children, and my own kids fell in love with what my high school students were doing. And so through that, I started thinking about, okay, what can I do to involve my own kids more? They were only 5 and 7 at the time. And so I had already been thinking about this because I had so many kids who would come into my program, and they would find out about my classes because of the club, and they heard that the club was fun. So I was getting people signing up for my classes who didn't really know what engineering was.
Cool.
And especially girls who said, I wish I had known about this sooner. This is so much fun. I love engineering. I really wish someone had told me how great this was sooner. So I started thinking about the fact that we need to get kids excited about engineering, excited about STEM subjects at an earlier age. There is a gap, unfortunately, in the career space in really all STEM fields, but specifically engineering. Women are very represented. And so this really was something that I could do as a single mom, involve my own kids in the business, but also inspire kids at a much younger age to get excited about STEM fields. So I started Engineering for Kids, and at first I was just a volunteer mom at my kids' school doing after-school programs. And throughout the program, I had teachers and the principal and parents ask me, do you have any summer programs? Do you do birthday parties? What else do you do? They really wanted more. So I thought, okay, this could be a business. And I started Engineering for Kids and started adding more programs, adding more curriculum. It took off. I quit my teaching job. Huge, very scary moment for me.
Sure. Can we pause there for a second?
Sure.
So you're a single mom.
Yes.
You quit your teaching job.
Mm-hmm.
You took that leap of faith.
Very scary, yes.
Yes, yeah. Actually, let's let them know where it landed, and then let's go back there, because I think that that moment is probably a moment who are listening have either experienced or thought of or talked themselves out of. So I want to talk about that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so I did. I took the leap. I quit my teaching job. I started running Engineering for Kids full time, and adding more programs, adding more curriculum, going into schools, doing after school programs. We had summer camps going on. We started doing birthday parties. I expanded my age range. So initially I was just working with elementary school kids. I added preschool programs. I added middle school programs. I wanted to make sure I had enough of a variety of programs and age range so that I can make a good living off of it and support my kids. So it took off. After a couple of years into it, I started getting people contacting me, asking me, Can I buy your curriculum? Or do you have an engineering for kids in Chicago? Or where can I find a program like this? In Australia, I started getting a ton of communications asking for my curriculum. So I started doing the research and looked at different business models. And I found that franchising really was the best way to grow engineering for kids. It's one of those businesses where you really need an owner operator that knows their own community best. And so started franchising at the end of 2011. And we are currently in 26 countries, and we have a little over 150 locations worldwide. So it's been very exciting, and my kids are still involved in the business. they were from day one, a little bit different because they're older. They're now actually teachers for me, which is really fun to see them teaching. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, I bet. So let's go back. There's lots of things I want to ask you that I know our audience is going to love, but let's go back to that moment where you quit your job. Was there anybody in your life that was like, what kind of crazy pill did you take? Or was everyone pretty supportive?
It was hard because it was 2009.
Oh, yeah.
We were in the middle of a pretty big recession, and I had people tell me, "You are crazy.
You did.
This is the worst time to start a business. What are you doing?" And I had enough interest at that point, because I did the first year. I was doing this part-time while I was still teaching. So, going from part-time to full-time, I had to make sure I did a lot of work to make sure that I did have enough programs so that I could make a living. But, when I very first started, I had someone tell me, you're crazy. You're not going to get any kids signed up. And so my very first summer camp, I said, you know what? I'll be happy if I get 15 kids sign up. And I got 50 in my first program. And so I think that even though we were in the middle of a bad recession, I think that parents were careful to spend their money wisely. And I had heard from other camp providers that their programs had really low numbers, like sports camps and things like that. And I think parents had a limited budget, and they wanted something that would be very meaningful. And, Engineering for Kids is a program that, can help their kids long term. And so I think that's why it worked. I think parents understand the importance of STEM education.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it was probably a pretty new conversation too at that point, right?
Absolutely.
Like not as common as it is today.
Yeah. So STEM really wasn't a buzzword back then. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of Engineering for Kids was very new. I had zero competition back then. And so it was something that I had some people say, seriously, you're going to teach engineering to kids? And I started at age 4. And so I had parents say, seriously, a 4-year-old engineering, and it's amazing what 4-year-olds can do. They're very, very smart. So, I think that some people at first were kind of confused by the business idea, but, I'm thrilled beyond words that it has turned out the way that it has.
So awesome. So, so that's a great answer in terms of like people thought you were crazy. What I also want to share with people is that you had a safety net. It wasn't like you had an idea and then you were like, I'm quitting my job. I had this great idea, or I took this course from so-and-so and they're going to teach me how to quit my job. You waited until you had enough momentum, enough customers, enough that you could conservatively say, if I had this many, I would be okay before you made that jump, which I think is so wise. So
yeah, it's risky. I've got kids.
Yeah, and not a second income.
Have to make sure that I can support them, and I did have to make some lifestyle changes, to make it work, and a few sacrifices. But in the end, my kids didn't really notice the difference, and I included them in everything. So back then they were helping me stuff envelopes and put signs out in the yard. And,
Cool.
they were my guinea pig for all of my curriculum. I tested everything out on them. So they were excited to be a part of it.
And how did they continue to be involved as you grew the company?
So they continued to be my guinea pig. So they would join the classes. And it's funny because my kids are very different. And so I would put them in, anytime I had new curriculum, things like that, I would put them in the classes. And I would sometimes not be there as to not make my curriculum developer super nervous. But I'd put my kids in there and they'd come home and I'd ask how it went. And my son, Matthew, he's the younger one, really liked this activity, but the teacher talked too much. And so he would give me that kind of critique. And my daughter would come home and she would give me a very analytical critique of everything. When she would say things like, well, the teacher needs to spend more time on giving instruction on the project. And, she would be very analytical and just completely analyze and break down the whole lesson. But my son would come home and be like, yeah, it was really fun.
So they were your secret shoppers.
Yes, absolutely.
Which saves you a lot of money, because if anybody has hired secret shoppers, you know that that's actually a pretty expensive service.
Yes, and kids are very honest, so they will tell me everything.
So good.
Yeah.
And then I know, as I was looking at some of your info, and so for everyone to know, Dori and I have been friends for a while. We were in similar mastermind together when I was a franchisor, and so I was still, seeing, well, what do I not know about Dori? And I didn't realize that you have a lot of locations in countries where traditionally women have not served any kind of leadership role. Mm-hmm. Has that been difficult to expand into Middle Eastern countries where, traditionally, for the most part, women don't run companies. They don't, they're not inventors and entrepreneurs. I mean, mm-hmm. I know that's changing, but traditionally that's mm-hmm. been the case.
Mm-hmm. So it has been interesting. So we have had a lot of interest in Asian countries specifically. That's where most of our international locations are. So there's a very high interest in education, and there's a very high interest in bringing education from the U.S. to that part of the world. I did have, in our Discovery Day process, I had one gentleman not so nice to me.
Really?
Because he just could not wrap his head around the fact that a woman was the CEO of Engineering for Kids. And he ended up not purchasing, which is, just wasn't the right fit for Engineering for Kids for that country. We now have an awesome owner. But it is interesting. It's culture is very different, and so we have one of our countries where we're in, women are not allowed to teach, so we have all male teachers.
Oh, wow, really?
So there's different kind of nuances with different countries, but we also have some female leaders, which is awesome. So I would say system wide, more than 70% of all of our franchisees are women, which is really cool. So it's been ups and downs, but overall it's been positive.
Has there been any other challenges that you've run into just as a woman who has, been leading up something that is traditionally a male-dominated field?
I would say not necessarily other challenges, but I think that it has been maybe in the opposite direction where it has been inspiring. So I think that I have found that there are franchisees who are happy that there's a woman CEO, and these are other women. But
a little biased,
they're happy. But... Yeah, they're happy to see it, because I think that my franchisees, my female franchisees, they are also interested in inspiring girls to get interested in engineering. And so we share that common interest of wanting to inspire girls to enter STEM fields. So it's worked in my advantage in that direction.
What would you say to somebody who has maybe a daughter who's very interested in engineering? What would you say to that person to help their daughter, become encouraged and excited about being in the sciences? What can they do to foster that excitement?
Well, other than come to an Engineering for Kids program.
Yeah.
I would say that teaching girls or showing girls the softer side of engineering. So
Mm.
I think that a lot of girls who aren't yet exposed to what engineers do don't quite understand that engineers ultimately are solving problems to help people. And I think that the reason why women do get interested in engineering is because it does pull on the heartstrings. So you've got certain fields of engineering, biomedical engineering, when you are, creating a prosthetic, or you're doing things that are saving lives. And I think that women are really drawn to careers that kind of pull on the heartstrings, and we love helping people. And so I think when you start to show girls that side of engineering, I think they become much more excited about it.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So like, is there like maybe just try to introduce them to people who are in those fields, or go to a science center that features those types of roles, in addition to going to engineering for kids, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a local female engineer that can come and talk to a class, or anything like that, or if there's any kind of program that they can get involved in, a lot of universities will have engineering days, and a lot of universities will have programs specifically for girls, which is an awesome time, to go and learn more about the field and what it takes to be an engineer, and what all it entails once you become an engineer.
That is so awesome. So what would you say are some of your tougher leadership lessons? We didn't plan this question, so if you need to take a minute, you're more than welcome. But what would you say are be like some of your toughest leadership lessons as you've grown this, this organization that's in 150 or 206 countries, right, and 150 locations? Like, what are some of the things that you've had to kind of figure out as you've gone from teacher to CEO?
That's a great question. It has been interesting going from teacher to CEO. It's very different, and very much the same. I guess it's very similar in that I have, instead of fostering students, I'm fostering franchisees, helping them grow. Whereas as a teacher, I'm helping students grow. So in that respect, it's similar. But yeah, so I don't have, a background in business, and many entrepreneurs don't. And so there have been a lot of things that I've had to learn along the way. And especially being the founder, in the very beginning, I did everything. I created all the curriculum. I did the teaching. I did everything, on the back end, on the business side of things. And so, when I initially started engineering for kids, I thought that I needed a lot of people to grow. And I thought that I needed to delegate all those hats, and have a large staff. And what I've learned is that that's not necessarily the best way to go, that there are a lot of resources out there that can save you a lot of money in employee costs. And so I've learned to outsource things. So really learning what are the best things to outsource, and what are the best things to hire, people for.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, has been, one of the hardest things to figure out. And now my company is lean and mean, and I outsource the things that are much better left to the experts who,
Yeah.
Whether it's website or marketing, whatever it is that, is best suited for a company that specializes in that.
Yeah. It's so funny because you do get to a certain point in your business and you're like, wow, there's marketing agencies, and you pay them monthly and they do the thing. Mm-hmm. And like, they don't have to be on your staff. Yeah. Like it's pretty amazing when you come to that point, and with other things too. Mm-hmm. And how do you think that, like, doing all the jobs in the beginning, how do you think that has impacted your credibility as a leader?
I think it helped a lot. I think that I know what each of those hats, what it entails to do that job. So I think it's definitely been beneficial to I think every business owner should know exactly, what their staff members are going through. So I think it definitely has helped.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day and they were saying like, oh, I'm thinking about starting this company, and then I would just hire people to do those jobs that I don't know how to do. And I really challenged that. I was like, I know it's painful, but like like for you to know how the finance operation runs in your company before you outsource it to a finance person is going to save you a lot of heartache.
Yes.
As much as you want to skip that step if you're not a finance person,
Yes.
it saves you a lot of heartache. So if you all just resonated with Dori's story, if you love women and the idea of women in engineering, if you have daughters or sons that you think should be in an Engineering for Kids program, underneath this website, click on their website. If you're interested in owning a franchise, there's a section for that. And then if you are interested in having your children register, there is a section for that as well. So Dori, I just want to thank you so much for being part of this and for sharing your wisdom and sharing your story and inspiring so many. And thank you again. And you'll be in the Facebook group to answer some questions. So if you want to connect with Dori and ask her more questions about her story, if you're a single mom and you just want somebody to fist pump you, she will do that for you and on your journey. And I just want to thank you again for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.